Hey all, Scott here, and if you could excuse me, I'm playing a mobile game. Yep, today's just another one of those 3D Cartoon Land Safari kind of days. I just wish I could play these kind of games on my picture box. If only. Whoa! I didn't know irrelevancy could take the form of concrete matter! Guys, I am the target demographic for a microconsole. Just grab your nearest Merriam-Webster's dictionary and turn to the page with the definition for microconsole Fireman on it. You'll find my picture right then and there. Now, if you don't know what a microconsole is, please watch this video while lounging in a trash can, because you don't deserve luxury, freak, as I define to you what exactly it is. A microconsole is a small and inexpensive alternative to a standard games console. Games are downloadable, and most of these systems run a version of Android. Not all do, but that piece of information right there should tell you that these consoles are primarily engineered closely to smartphones and tablets. And that primarily means that a lot of mobile games can run on these things. Huh. Here we have the first system to start the revolution, the OnLive Microconsole. OnLive was a service that was truly ahead of its time, as it allowed you to stream games with everything ranging from indie to AAA. OnLive was usable via a PC or even an Android tablet, so this console allowed the service to be used on a television set with ease. It also came with an OnLive branded controller that's a bit of a crossbreed between a PS3 and Xbox 360 controller, and man, this feels wonderful in the hands. This is truly a really nice controller, I'm not gonna lie. The console itself has a surprising amount of heft to it, which means it probably won't get pulled off your entertainment center by a cord or something. Of course, the OnLive service has been discontinued since April 2015, so this thing reeks of paperweight, sadly. I gave the free trial a spin years ago on my 2010 white MacBook. Of course, it worked as well as Saints Row III could work on a 2010 white MacBook, but it still worked. Sony bought out OnLive, so technically the service still lives on through PlayStation Now. Next up, the Ouya, the most infamous microconsole of the bunch. It was initially announced via Kickstarter, and that thing blew way up, being one of the biggest crowdfunding success stories at the time. It was pitched as a tiny Android-based game console that would be inexpensive and easy to develop for, as every Ouya console doubled as a development kit. Upon arrival of the device, people were disappointed that it turned out to be just a tiny Android game console that was inexpensive. The Kickstarter specifically drove it in how big of a revolution the console was, being cheap with all the games having at least a free demo, meaning even the poorest of saps could afford to play games. The console is fine, it's small and looks pretty nice. The controller feels pretty cheap though. The sides come off to pop batteries in, and they end up giving it a pretty cheap vibe. I would play some slick games on it, but mine shipped broken, so all I can say is I hope it holds up to a durability test. What's up guys, today we're going to be doing a durability test of the Ouya. We're going to be taking one full swing at the device at chest height. Let's see how it fares. Yeah, I don't know about you, I wouldn't buy that thing. It broke after one hit. The Ouya didn't have enough compelling games and good press. It was, dare I say it, exactly what you paid for. A $99 console won't have specs on par with the other consoles out at the time and won't be of the same quality. The fact that so many games on the store are mobile games was a bit underwhelming, as this is a console, thus I kind of want console quality games or games that feel at home on a console. Not only that, but looking at the original Kickstarter pitch trailer, they never really lived up to the concept. The Ouya failed because of the game's quality and bad publicity. It's pretty simple. Here we have the GameStick, another Kickstarter success story, although not as much so as the Ouya. The GameStick's gimmick was that it touted a flash drive-like design, akin to the first generation Chromecast, being so small you can fit it in the controller. It does require a power source though, so it's not like the back of your TV will be completely free of wires. It's very similar to the Ouya in terms of games, but the GameStick relies even more heavily on indies. You won't see as many big-name games here. Some more mobile game ports or indie games that you can get elsewhere are nothing special by any means. The feel of the controller is pretty cheap. It has a glossy white finish which feels kinda like the Wii Classic controller, but the buttons are all really hard and clicky. It's okay, but not top of the line quality. Definitely works better for smaller, classic feeling games. I do like the concept of the GameStick, it's just that at an MSRP of $79, you can easily grab yourself something like an Xbox 360, which has a vaster supply of great indie games in addition to AAA games and a plethora of multimedia features. Also, mine is stuck on the code activation screen and won't give me a code, so I don't really have anything to say about the games experience-wise. Also, if you weren't sold on the GameStick and wanted it to be a bit tackier, hold up because there are cartoon eyes at the top guarding the GameStick. 3 consoles in and microconsoles really don't have much going for them, mainly due to the fact that I haven't really been able to use any of them, but even if I did, No games I've seen running on these devices seem very compelling. To be fair, many of the games on these platforms are great, but they're already vastly available other places. And I'm not knocking indie games, but the majority of the ones on microconsoles kinda blow. Games that would have gotten a pass in terms of lower levels of creativity and quality because they were on mobile are now slapped on a TV, the same place you can play big console games. Suddenly, Shadowgun goes from being alright to a cheap piece of garbage. Now we move on to the PlayStation TV, Sony's foray into the microconsole market, and on paper, this thing sounds pretty bangin'. The PS TV is fundamentally a PS Vita as a set-top box. It has access to the Vita's PlayStation Store, allowing access to thousands of games. Couple that with being able to play Vita game cards, streaming PS3 games via PS Now, and playing PS4 games via remote play, whether in another room or in another country, and this thing should have done relatively well. I'm about to let out an audible yikes to imply this thing failed way past big time. Yikes, this thing failed way past big time. I don't think Sony really did a good job telling people what this thing was. It was more of a small game console rather than a streaming box. This thing can't play Netflix or YouTube through their respective apps, so this thing is primarily just a stripped down game console, which is fine, but with a name like PlayStation TV, it's misleading, there's no denying that. The UI is also really clunky to control with just a controller. This was obviously made to be used with a touchscreen, and even to the people who wouldn't know this was a Vita in a box would think, wow, this is just a touchscreen interface ported over. That's kinda cheap and lazy. But with all that said, the PS TV offers quite a bit. If you want to play some Vita games, PS3 games via PlayStation Now, PSP and PS1 games, man, the PS TV is pretty good. It's just that it really appeals to a more niche market, a similar market to those who love their Vitas. These systems are wicked cheap right now because, surprise surprise, nobody flocked to buy these things. The final dedicated microconsole we're going to be taking a look at today is the Catz Mojo. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to look up the price and subsequently order it online. Yellow.
Hey Scott, your old pal Questioning Max here. Who is our Lord and Savior?
Jesus Christ! The Catz Mojo is an Android tablet in a box. It's as simple as that, and if you heard the recent news of Catz, it's pretty easy to tell how it did. Finally, here are the current champions of the microconsole ring, set-top boxes, like the Apple TV and Amazon Fire TV. These things get it right. They are streaming boxes first and foremost, and they offer games. Amazon was pushing games big time with the Fire TV, and that just didn't end up working too awfully well. Mainly because, once again, these games are fundamentally just mobile games on a TV. Once you play a standard mobile game on a TV, you get why nobody really cares about this concept. It's a nice bonus, but nobody wants these things just to play Crossy Road.
Well, those are microconsoles for you. You see, around 2013 or so, a lot of people were labeling these things as console killers. Just the fact that they were so inexpensive and they had mobile games and indie games on them, which are incredibly popular types of games, made these things seem destined to succeed. Microconsoles are and have always been stupid. Why would I want to play mobile games on my big screen TV? Mobile games are popular because they're quick and they're already on your phone. Nobody buys an iPhone to play Crossy Road. People download Crossy Road because it's on the iPhone. Nobody's going to want to play these games on a big screen TV and have them be the main point of their focus. People would rather play them on their tiny phone so then they don't have to focus on it all the time and they can focus on other things as well in their peripheral vision and whatnot. Nobody's going to sit there for hours playing mobile games on their big screen TV. But okay, whatever. Ouya and GameStick and all these other things have indie games. Well, it's a little too bad because most of the indie games on these things reek, or they're available in so many other places. And if you're a fan of indie games, you already obviously have a platform to play indie games on. Why would you use a GameStick or an Ouya to play indie games on? It's obviously going to be the inferior way to play it compared to many other ways, or even the way you have to play it because you already like indie games, or you already like mobile games. You already have somewhere to play these games. So the game library on these things reek. The controllers are usually subpar, and these things appeal to basically a non-existent market. And I think I have scoliosis, but I'm too self-conscious to ask my doctor about it, because every single time I go to the doctor's just like, wow, Scott, you look really healthy. See me in a few months. And I'm like, thanks, doc. But then I'm like, I go home and I'm like, this smells like scoliosis.